So I'll change the time on here. Can you adjust it on there? I'll change it on that one there. Is that doing anything? Which window are you actually broadcasting from now?
Anything I can tweet it already. So I can delete and create another one.
It's working. Let's leave it at 7. We're not going to start before 7, are we?
No.
It'll open at 7, so yeah, we'll go with that one. Lovely. Right, I'm going to go grab
No, it's like I think it's going to be my first class. I think it's streaming, but I'm not sure.
I think it got stuff from there because I just have.
But when I open YouTube now, it's telling me it's my account, so I can't really be sure.
Oh no, it is. Right, okay. Yeah. Oh, not again.
Thanks a lot. Oh, hello. Yeah, it is. Hello. We're ready to do some of that talking part. So if you want to come and get a seat, then we'll do that bit. Don't want to stand at the back. Might just be weird. It's a very nice sofa down here. So we are streaming live. I thought I might also try a host view on my GoPro. Never actually used this before, so this will either be a really entertaining behind-the-scenes kind of affair, or else it'll just be for my own amusement. Let's see what it does. Yep, the first shot's of my hand. That's good. I usually say it later, but I suppose I'll say it at this point. If there's anyone that doesn't want to be on film or photographed or blocked about extensively, you should have, then do let us know. Well, I mean, You haven't volunteered for this gig, so it's too late now. There they are. Ooh, okay, this works. I don't think I can maintain this while I'm speaking. Can you hold that for a minute? There you go, great. Audience participation already. Hello everyone, have we sat? Are you all right in the back there, you people? You just gonna, yeah? Can't move away from the booze. So, getting the most out of big data. Do join in the conversation on Twitter. We'll be having a big conversation later as well. I need to move this forward to remind everyone to tell you about. Okay, so first of all, welcome. I know a lot of you have been to InterTech events before for a long time. Some are brand new. If you don't know us, we're a diversity forum for LGBT+ people. We like to do a range of different events to inspire you and get you networking and doing more stuff. So I thought I'd take you through our 3 main strands. Tonight is an InterTech talk event because we've chosen to talk about big data. We've got a panel of speakers, and we have got meet events, which are more social outings. We haven't done many of those this year, so if you've got ideas for where we can just go and hang out and do some interesting things that aren't necessarily a gay bar in Soho, then drop me a line, because we want some ideas of what to do, particularly through the winter and the dark nights. InterTech do. That's where we meet up once a month and hack away on specific projects. At the moment, we're working on a mentoring platform and some charity work. We've also got a bigger 24-hour hack at Facebook coming up for its 3rd year towards the end of this year, so keep your eyes peeled for that. We welcome anyone, you don't have to be an engineer. In fact, at the moment, we're a bit short of designers. So if you're a designer or you know anyone who's in design, then please get in touch with us because we need a bit of help at the moment. Not just to redesign a bit of our logo, but for some actual proper interesting challenges to do with websites. Okay, well, social media, photos and video. I've told you that bit. We are technically open until 9:45 PM, and then you can go to the pub next door. Now, I'm aware that there may be an alcohol situation before that occurs. And I've been assured that the good people who work in this office on a regular basis do just pop next door, buy a drink and come back. You are welcome to do that, should we get to such a situation whereby you need to. Just say you're with ReadingRoom and they'll understand. Speaking of drinking, you are more likely to be killed by a champagne cork than a poisonous spider. I know I am, because I open magnums with my teeth. This is the part of the night where I go, I've done some statistics. Actually didn't. In the style of Jeremy Corbyn, I just emailed a few people and I went, you got any stats? Thank you. First proper joke of the night. So that was one about drink. There's another one about drink. It's estimated that at any one time, 0.7% of the world's population is drunk. It's nice to see that they all turned up tonight. Here's my favourite one. 3 out of 4 people in this room make up 75% of the people here. That's a fact. Visualize that. Speakers and you lot. Yeah, we've got some great speakers, and thank you so much for turning up and enduring my interest. But it's also you lot, so hopefully, if I stop waffling, I'll give you enough time at the end to ask questions, and we can have a proper angry Jeremy Kyle style debate about this, and I'll run around the audience and sit on you. Okay, that's that bit. What's that? It's the beginning of your talk. Should we do you? Laura Knight. Okay, hi Laura. So Laura works in visualizing data. In fact, she teaches masterclasses for The Guardian, I believe, on that very subject, helping us understand. Here's another fact. Laura used to teach me how to swing dance. Oh, I know. We're not doing that tonight. This is tech people don't dance. Fact. Right, shall I hand over to you? Are you ready? Is that enough? All right, please welcome Laura.
Oh, wow, I'm quite loud. I don't always enjoy being loud, so if I start to drop it like this, just put your hand in the air and say, we can't hear you, Laura. My name's Laura. I work for Data Design Studios, which is a small studio within a research firm based in Shoreditch, where the beards come from. And we started out as just an in-house design team for the research company. We do, we're full service, we do qual and quant, lots of consumer research in the music industry, and then more recently, social, economic and political research, which is much more interesting. But then we started to get our own clients, and so now we're like a fully fledged company, and we don't have time to do research stuff anymore. But we're quite an interesting company in that we're half designers and half data people. So we're not just people who make data look pretty, we can actually analyze it and take a look at it, and we often get these massive downloads of big data from our clients that we then sort of sift and pull out the stories from. So, I think when I built the talk today, I said I was going to talk about the day in the life of the data visualizer. So I thought that'd be a fun place to start. So I thought I'd start with my ideal day, which is something like this. Big data set arrives. The data team have already analysed it and cut it. They pass it on to us, and we get to do something visual with it. And then we get to go to the pub. So that's a really, really good day. Unfortunately, that's about 2% of the days that we have in a year. Generally, the way it goes is, sorry, skipped one there. That's the ideal, is the client comes to the data expert, comes to a designer, and bish, bash, bosh, it's done. A typical day, however, is a client sends us loads of data, and they don't really have a clue what they want to do with it. They've got some idea that they want something fancy, maybe they've seen an infographic on the internet, or their boss has asked them to condense 9 months of work and report data down into one slide that they can put in front of some sort of executive board. And generally at this stage, they're in a bit of a panic. And this is what we find. Everybody has data. Everybody has loads and loads of data, but not many people know exactly what they want to do with it or what it can do for them. And so that's where we come in. And this is what we've increasingly built a job for ourselves in. Sometimes they send us stuff like this. I thought we could do something a little bit like this. Maybe not. So can anyone spot some of the things that are wrong with this? Just throw it out there.
Too much.
It's just too much. Yeah, that's two very good words for this. So some of the things we would talk about if I was teaching you a data visualization masterclass at the moment are things like inappropriate use of colour. Colour's used in a bit of a slapdash way here. It's not used to group things together. So all the things that are red on here are not connected in any way. It has no clear narrative, as we often joke. They have a nice little arrow at the top corner that says start, and then no real guidance, to be honest. It's like dropping you off in the middle of the woods, in the middle of the night, and asking you to find your way home. Inconsistent use of typography, random sizes all over the place. I think we can have about 5 different sizes of typeface. Yeah, it's just a collection of stats. And this tends to be the kind of brief that we will get from lots of clients, most notably PR and marketing agencies, who just have a bunch of interesting things and they want you to put them together. And generally our answer is, no. Sometimes on a special day, the client sends us data that they tried to visualize, or maybe a PowerPoint deck that they've made an absolute mess of, that's due in the morning, and they've used all the skills that maybe they don't have, or they've quickly learned that they don't have, and they do amazing things. I can't say these things used to bother me before I started working in data visualization, but now I look at that and I'm like, it's like seeing Comic Sans on my sandwich when it arrives. Random use of colour. Now this is a deceptive one because it looks pretty, doesn't it? It looks designed and it looks good. It looks like an infographic. Our brain looks at that and goes, yes, designers have fun times with this. But the problem is with it is, if you see, the colours are not used consistently across the thing, so they actually add no meaning. They're pure decoration. They mean a completely different thing in this chart, they mean in this chart, they mean in this chart. And the radial diagram, the designers visualising a wet dream, they just love to use them because they look pretty, but actually it's completely inappropriate for this the type of data that we've got in here. This is a good favourite of mine. Good combination of horrible colour use and terrible typography. Can you see what they've done here with the colours? Yeah, so they've gone, oh, black, blue, black, that'd be great, won't it? And then what they've done is they've coloured in these random shapes as percentages, but then they've sort of forgotten that the 36% relates to blue, but they've made it black. So you can see what they tried to do. It's nice. So yeah, another fabulous one here. Anyone see what's going on? So this is a chart showing you the race and ethnicity of America between 2 certain time dates. But they've gone, it's about America, we will make it in the shape of America. And the fundamental problem with that is that this graph at first glance suggests that all the Asian people live just here. It's a bit deceptive, isn't it? Yeah, so we use that one quite a bit. This one I'm not even going to talk about because I usually start to cry. We'll just move on.
Why was the crotch text out?
Yeah. Just going to use my own tech on this one. Yeah, this slide's not supposed to be in here. Like, this is supposed to come later. So consider that a tease. So yeah, that's generally my feelings when clients send through things like this. Dashboards, we all love that. Anyone worked on dashboards here? They know they're a bit of a nightmare. So generally the point where you've got to a dashboard is where you've got more data than you can deal with. And you need to arrange it into something that sort of works. And we do a lot of data design masterclasses with management information teams. Very, very nice people, work in Excel quite a bit, and they have a habit of producing things that look like this. The 3D marble effect, so popular in the early days of computers. So yeah, we look at them, we breathe, we consider going to the pub, and then we sit down and have a go. Data visualization has become really trendy, as you probably noticed, and in large part it's due to publications like this. Who's seen these? Yeah, David McCandless. Any friends of David McCandless in the audience? Okay, good. I went to see him talk a few months ago. He's a fascinating guy, he's really, really great. But he's a data journalist who doesn't always pronounce his T's, which I find annoying. So we spent the whole thing talking about data. Just like, the whole time. But he's produced these two books, Information is Beautiful and Knowledge is Beautiful. And in it, he's really good at going out and finding data to answer questions, which is great. It's a really inspiring thing that he does. This is the £1 billion grant, so he just collected a bunch of random statistics that are out there in the world and tried to visualise what £1 billion buys in the world. And you can see it comes up with some quite interesting things. I'm going to put it out there and say I'm not a big fan of David McCandless's design work, but I like his data approach. It's really, really interesting. It's a particular favourite of mine. He was pretty convinced that all horoscopes basically said the same thing. So he scraped a bunch of horoscopes off the internet and visualised them in my least favourite of the visualisation things, the word cloud. But it does work quite well in this instance. And he did see, as you can see, frequency, yeah, they do basically all say the same thing. Which leads us on to this. So McCandless, for all that he is a bit of a joker at times, he did create an awesome chart which explains really well about what makes good information design. Unfortunately, he did it in colours that don't always work on a screen, but thankfully it works. So you'll see he said that good information design encompasses 4 really important things: interestingness, function, form, and integrity. So you have to have data that has some truth and some consistency. It needs to be relevant, meaningful, and new. It needs to be easy to use and access. And it needs to look nice. And so what he did was visualize this around, and he said, if it's interesting and it's got some level of function, it's an experiment, form and function, a sketch. And you can see he was quite harsh. So if it's got integrity, it's interesting, and function, it's generally quite ugly. So you need to combine all the 4 things to really have something that's successful. And you'll see on this side, this is the information or the data. And on this side, this is the design. And what we generally find with clients that we work with, they've got a lot of this stuff. Some of them don't, but most of them have a lot of good data. It's important, it's well researched, it's got integrity. But they just have no idea how to do this bit, and that's where they tend to struggle. Less of a rock star, but arguably much more important, Edward Tufte. Any fans of Edward? Oh, so happy. Nice to be amongst fellow geeks. Yeah, this book, possibly the worst cover in the world. I do understand why nobody has ever read it. But it's a classic book on data visualization, really. It's about statistical graphics, best practices. It's got about, I think, 250 illustrations of charts, the best and the worst. And he explains in quite a lot of language about best practices around charts. It's really long, and I'm not going to lie to you, it's quite dull. So I thought I would just condense it down into what I consider 3 of the most important points from the book. So he talks about the importance of graphical integrity. So visual representations of data have to tell the truth. So if you've ever seen a chart produced by a USA TV station like Fox News, you'll see that they miss this really important thing. They like to adjust their axes quite a bit to exaggerate the data. And this tends to be what designers do by accident through not understanding how to work with data, is they make the data say things that it doesn't really say. The second one, he coined this term data ink and chart junk, which is my favorite thing. So he said you should maximize the data ink on the page and just erase as much of everything else as possible. So really the colors of the bars, the actual physical data on the page should be the brightest and clearest thing, and everything else just needs to disappear. And that led on to this idea of chart junk. So it's easy to visualize chart junk. Just think of everything that Microsoft Office has as standard. So a bevel, a drop shadow, a gradient, grid lines, shaded backs on charts that are there for no apparent reason. That's chart junk. So he was arguing that you can eliminate the majority of that and just turn data in its purest form into a visual pattern. And our eyes recognize that, and our brain understands it much quicker. Our brains are hardwired to understand visual imagery a lot quicker than they are lines of numbers and text. So, when we start working with data, the first thing we'll think about, and we're amazed often at how often people work with data and they don't think about these things, we think about the type of data that we've got. So here's 4 sort of rough areas that you can think about. Is it quantitative? Is it discrete? Is it continuous? Is it categorical? Can it be categorized? And then we start to think about the relationships between the data. And it doesn't want to move. No?
So, you know, this is because you slagged off Microsoft.
I'm using this.
They're watching all time.
Yes.
Hi.
Yeah, and then we start to think about relationships and data. I'm going to break this down for you, and I'm about to employ in a minute. But yeah, you start to think about things like, can you compare the data? Is it part of a whole? What you see all the time is people go, pie charts, they're visualized, they like data visualization, fantastic. And they'll just cover their infographics with pie charts, even though it's not really the most effective representation for their data. Oh, really is, isn't it? Wow, it's amazing. Sorry.
So I take this opportunity to do an extreme moment with the GoPro.
Okay, 5-star, Wayne's World style. I'm so glad we could have that moment. Yeah, so we condense that down into this, which is like a thing that we keep next to our desk, and it just sort of shows you roughly data light, data heavy, numerical, illustrative, and it helps you pick out a good representation type. It's amazing how much design time is wasted going down a road with a data representation that's never going to work for your data. So this is like a quick and dirty reference sheet that we use quite often, definitely when we're working with types of data to see the relationships. I really like some of these. I love this word, charticle, which is where you've got a lot of text and not a lot of data. So you kind of set it out like an article and a few little charts and big numbers in it. Charticle, so cute. Pictorial charts, they're probably the most contentious of the infographic formats. People don't tend to like the little people, but they can be useful in some instances, mostly when it's data light and illustrative. Oh, and this is the chart junk. So you can see what I mean. This is about increasing the data ink on the page. So all this stuff, the grid lines, the shaded backs, in some ways the way the axes are labelled and things like that, it's not actually adding into the message, it's taking away from it. It's giving you lots of things for your eyes to wander to that's not the data. And so what they argued is you can eliminate a lot of this. And what we'll talk about is, depending on your audience, sometimes you could eliminate all of this as well if you're just showing a relationship and you can just label key points. So mostly we'll go through and we'll figure out what we can take away. And we'll take out as much as we can. So when it comes to analysing the data, increasingly clients just don't know how to do that. It's amazing. And they quickly realise that data by itself is not a very helpful thing. And so we kind of walk them through a little process, which I'll walk you through now. So think of this as like a Guardian masterclass in 3 minutes for free. So we talk about audience. Any of you that are developers, you'll be totally down with this here. It's amazing how many people come with a data problem, but they don't really know who they're talking to. And so we always say, who are you trying to communicate with? And what's their numeracy level? Do they enjoy data or do they fear it? Yeah, because there's very different approaches for both those people. And what's their data literacy level? How much data do they look at? Do you really need to spell it out for them, or are they happy to delve? How much time do they have? The most important thing. You see lots of time and effort going into making really complex visualizations that people don't look at. They don't have the time to explore. So does it need to be explanatory or does it need to be exploratory? The message. What is it that you actually want them to know? So infographics, there's a lot of them out there in the world. They're kind of the definition of chart junk a lot of the time. People just collect a bunch of interesting things and they throw them at a page. And they think, that'll do. But actually, how much of it actually needs to be on there? What is it that you're trying to tell them? What type of decisions do they make? And how is this information going to help them make those decisions? So what do they need? And how does it actually add value for them? So we call this the so what. Like, you've told me this, so why is this important? And then you get on to the most interesting thing, the story. So this is where we talk about how much precision is actually necessary. What we find often, again, with clients that have got a lot of data is everything in that data set is really, really interesting to them. And they're really keen to just show it all. But often their audience isn't interested in everything that's in that data set, and they don't need to know everything that's in there. And they definitely don't want to be bombarded with a bunch of charts and representations from that data set. So how much do you actually need to tell them? And some clients are really disappointed to find out it's just a case of making a couple of big numbers, not always about making a chart. How are you going to represent the data? So that little thing that we talked about, how do you choose the right representation that's actually going to get the message across? And then it comes on to our bit, the design. So have you got any white space on there? How have you used colour? Have you used it to categorise things or separate things? Have you used it in a sequential way? And that's all the stuff that we really enjoy and we really get into as designers. Typography, best practice, all that kind of stuff. So that is a very brief introduction to the day in the life of a data visualizer. But also the kind of steps that we use to try and draw meaning out of data on a day-to-day basis when we work with it. I find it interesting, sorry about the technological faults. If you've got any questions at the end, I would love to talk to you. Do come and find me, but thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I hate when the speakers phone over me. Right. People photocopying their bum are the cause of 23% of all worldwide photocopier faults. Thanks, Mum, for that one. Okay, now here's what I wanted to test out. Apparently, a higher percentage of lefties, there are a higher percentage of lefties in the gay population. I think we should do an impromptu test. If you identify as gay and are left-handed, raise your left hand. 2, 3, 4, 5. That's about average. Great. That was really worth the time. Speaking of LGBT stats, there is a reason why I wanted to do a data event on LGBT plus for InterTech. So we actually did an event with, in association with Accenture not long ago, on data privacy and how important that is for our community, that we don't give away things inadvertently. Last year we also did an event on UX and gender, which is about what opportunities you have to identify yourself and give information to people. So this is kind of like the third part in a trilogy, I think, which is, all right, well, once we've got past all that, what happens with our data? And I was looking at the 2013 census, because I clearly had that much time. It was interesting because according to the UK census, 1.5% of the population identified as LGBT, which came way under everyone's estimates, including the Treasury, who had budgeted that 6% of the population might want to get gay married and it was going to cost them something. And it makes you think, okay, so have previous reports been at fault, or is there something else going on? Is there something wrong with the questionnaire? Is there something wrong with the data? If so, how damaging or innocuous is that? And I think it's an interesting question because a lot of the reasons why we encourage companies to do data monitoring securely is that they can see where they need to put more effort in, where they need to send funds, where they need to give more support. And I think that's true on a global scale as well. If you start to misrepresent underrepresented people already, they just become increasingly invisible. So I think representing data badly, sorry UK censors, can be a potentially dangerous thing. So I wanted to throw that one out as to why I wanted to do another event on this. Questions later. I'm going to hand over to the next speaker first. Henry Croydon is from Tonka BI, it's a data analytics company. You're going to take us right back to what is data and then how we can use it. Okay, good. I'll hand you the mic then.
That's one.
Yeah, hi, I'm Harry Croydon, so Tonka BI, I'm the CEO. We're a company that takes a kind of practical look at data and try to. So for our clients, we try and get them to extract value out of their data. So lots of companies have data, lots of people use data, and they visualize data, but a lot more companies are actually seeing their data as an asset, and they want to use it and get better sales out of it, better customer journeys, better things out of their data. So this is what we try and do. So we pick the data up and then we visualize it, but also with an aim of increasing the bottom line. So what is big data? So you and I have data. Just walking around every day with your mobile phones, you give people data, you collect data. I was quite surprised the other day. I was trying to get a bit fit, so I thought, oh, I'll go to my phone and get a fitness app. So I looked at my actual apps, and even on my Windows phone, I had an app for that. So it was quite good. And but I found out it'd been tracking me for like months, and I've been doing like 10,000 steps a day, which is this sort of funny target. I thought it's brilliant, but 10,000 steps a day is something like 235 kilometers a month. I thought that's crazy, thinking that you're going to walk 235 kilometers. But just knowing about data and picking up data, suddenly you find things that are interesting in your life. I never knew I walked over 200 kilometers a month, but apparently I do. And then the other thing we sort of found was my wife and I went to New York, and we had a little bit of argument about what we did one day and where this cafe was. And so we'd go to Google, and then Google would collect all the data of where you're going. You get this crazy map of where you've wandered all over New York, and then you can work out exactly where that cafe was and settle the argument. And obviously, I was wrong. So, and then then people are now getting Fitbit type devices and all these things that are collecting more and more data. And all these bits of data are all in various pockets, in different areas and different things. Facebook, and Google, they collect tons and tons of data, but most companies collect, an amount of data. So what I want to do is just really move on to businesses. So lots of businesses have lots of diverse sets of data, and they collect them. But they don't necessarily do very much with them. What I always find amazing is that people collect the data, but they don't do anything with it. Well, they do it in little silos, little chunks, but they don't actually, as a company, collect it all together and start analysing it. And that's what we try and encourage them to do and help them. So I work in financial services, and most financial services desks still look like this. They walk around with bits of paper, they have still fax machines and all things like that. But you'd think that they would be one of the big users of data. They are in some areas, but things like customer service and things like that, they're not. And we try and, again, encourage them to do that. They have things like, Excel is a great collector of data, but it's not very good at sharing the data amongst lots of people, or even setting standards, so people can make up all sorts of facts and then present them back, using Excel. But in businesses, they're not. It's not kind of governed. It's not standardized in any way. So there's a thing called the 3 V's, and it's not just about 4 V's. It's not just about volume, which people know a lot about and hear a lot about, but it's also about the sort of variety, what's the types of data. So one of the big barriers to using data is how many different types of data there is that you have in your organization. How do you get Excel and different formats of data all munched together to actually put it in a condition to actually then analyze the data. So there's also the velocity. How often does data change? So if you're on a trading desk, it changes every millisecond, and you're watching the charts go up and down. It's crazy. There's lots of data pouring in. Whereas if you work for an insurance company, the data changes about once a year, apparently, as people buy their product and then they go away again for a whole other year. So different bits of data in your organisation can change at different speeds. And then there's veracity. How do you trust the data? So an example would be a sales guy. He wanted and said, "I've made a sale." So the sales department chalk it up as a sale. The procurement department, who has to finish the contract, they haven't signed it yet. So for them, it's something still in progress. And then the FD hasn't yet got the actual money in the bank account. So within the business, you can have 3 or 4 different views of that same person's idea that he's made a sale. So veracity is all about trying to get a data standard set within the business, so you can actually say what a sale is, or what a customer is, or what a transaction is, or what a process is. So this is a slide talking about where different businesses are and how to take a business forward on their sort of data journey. So initially, the way we sort of approach these things is a proof of concept. So we'll walk into a business and we will help them with a small team put a proof of concept together, and then spread that amount out amongst the business. So typically, when a business starts, the proof of concept may be just a small part of the business, and then we spread that spread the results, hopefully good results, to other parts of the business, and then we do another proof of concept with another part of the business. And then as they start experimenting, they then start to adopt a more defined strategy across the business, and this is where you start setting data standards and becoming a bit more kind of strategic about it. And once you get right through the business, it means that you get a corporation who can actually value their data, and it becomes an actual asset to them, and it starts making a big difference to their daily life. Decisions are made by data. Everybody understands the data is spread out in the business, and it's all kind of governed and standard. So this is kind of a typical diagram of where we get to. So we're talking about visualizations, and they're kind of on the other end of this diagram. So the dashboards and the visualizations here. But these are like examples of the different types of data that you have within a business, structured and unstructured data. And what we do is we pull that into a data platform, and depending on how much data there is, it can be a big or small data platform, and then we put it into an analytical database where then they can start using that data and visualizing it and actually applying analytics to it in real time, so that businesses can then get an idea of what's happening in real time around their business, whether it be a group of shops or a factory or a nightclub. You can actually see how things are working for your business in real time. So what I want to do now is just walk through a couple of kind of case studies. So the first one is a business that transports and tracks cars from the factory to the dealer. So when they come out of the factory, the car's all nice and shiny and new, and hopefully as a purchaser you're waiting for it to be at the dealer all nice and shiny and new without any damage. But the cars get put on road transporters, they put on ships, they get carted around the country, put in fields, left around, and then eventually they roll up at the dealer, and then the dealer inspects them and then if there's any damage, the dealer has to fix it before you, the customer, turns up with your nice shiny new car. So there's a whole process in there of delivering cars, and obviously some of them are very expensive, like Range Rovers and things like that. And the occurrence of damage can be from like a hailstone event, which is kind of an act of God, or it can be the hooligan driving it along hits bumps and lumps in the road, and it causes damage to the car. So when it turns up, it's got a chip on the wheel. So what used to happen was that the reports used to get put into Excel, email, analysed, and the manufacturer wouldn't get an idea that something happened for about 6 to 8 weeks. So what we've done is we've taken all this data and we now track it through the delivery process, which means that the manufacturers can actually see any errors in real time, which means that they can actually start fixing the process, i.e. they can tell the drivers to slow down, or they can tell the transporter to go a different route and not to go under the low bridge, and it's enabled them to actually sort of get less number of damage to cars, but also fix the route for delivery a lot smoother. So this is looking for fraud inside data. So insurance companies have a lot of data, and what they do typically is a case comes in and they review it manually, and then they decide that this case, like a whiplash or something like that, looks like it could be fraud, fraudulent event. So they manually then spend sort of 4, 6, 8 hours trawling the internet, find information on that person, to supplement their own records about the case, to see if it is playing football at the weekend, or what are they do with it, and they're making a fraudulent claim. And which means that the number of cases that they can analyse in that way is quite small, because 8 hours is a lot of manpower to put into looking at the case. So what we've done, we've built an analytics tool that scrapes information from Twitter, Facebook, and set out search engines, and also the data from electoral rolls and land registry, all those sort of databases, and put it all into one, and then you can put in a name and a date of birth and maybe an address of the person, press a button, and then seconds later you've got this full report on the person. So the time taken is going from like 6 to 8 hours down to 2 or 3 minutes, which means that the company can now look at more and more fraudulent cases, and more they can look for more analytics within their data. I was going to do one more. So I'll just talk about one more. The other one is it's a sales process where a sales team has got they do multi-channel sales, and the salespeople typically will go and sell what they're comfortable selling to their customers. So what we've done like a gap analysis between what we've analysed what the profile of the customers and also what they buy off the company, and then done a gap analysis marked up to sales teams so that they can recommend to the sales teams what products those companies normally buy, and that's increased sales by sort of 10 or 15% across the sales team. And it also means that when they go and see a customer, rather than knowing the sales guy thinking he knows what the person wants, they can actually go and have a different conversation with the sales team by saying, this is what your customers like you buy, and then you can start selling them more and a much wider sort of number of products. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I got some more stats through. How you doing? You alright? Yeah. Right, that was an official poll. Let's have a look what we got. Stats. Are there any Americans in? Any Americans? 1, 2. All right, here we go. It's one for you. On average, Americans eat 18 acres of pizza every day. I think they mean collectively. That's a good one. Here's one for the next speaker. The average talker sprays about 300 microscopic saliva droplets per minute. That's about 2.5 droplets per word. Everybody look out for his droplets. Next. No, let's not do that. So next up, we've got Adam Sefton. He is the Group Executive Creative Director here at ReadingRoom. I remembered it. And at this point, it's probably good to thank them so much for hosting us as well. We've had some great chats leading up to this event, and we really appreciate it when we throw open the doors to something like this, because obviously InterTech doesn't exist without support of the company. So as you welcome Adam up to talk, please give a big thank you to ReadingRoom and their hospitality.
Thank you. Yeah, so I am the Executive Director of ReadingRoom. We are a digital agency and consultancy. You'll see lots of smiley faces at the back who belong there, so if you want to talk to us afterwards about working with us or working for us, do come and say hi. I have to get the plug in, I'm a company man. So this is going to be my talk. Never tell me the odds, a short ramble through the tyranny of big data. Can I just check, has anyone not seen any of the Star Wars films? Just raise your hand. Oh wow, okay, that's more than I thought. The analogy is going to be lost on some of you guys, but we're going to go with this anyway. This is a clip from Empire Strikes Back, where the Millennium Falcon is racing through space, and they're desperately trying to avoid Darth Vader and the Empire catching them, and around about at this point, C-3PO, so C-3PO, possibly the model of big data, which is why the analogy is here, tells Han Solo, "But sir, the odds of successfully navigating an asteroid field are 3,720 to 1. To which Han Solo replies, "Never told me the odds." And I think sometimes it's better not to know the odds. And I think that the tyranny of big data is actually that by knowing the odds, it makes us less likely to try and change something. It makes us more likely to stick with the status quo. I'm going to come back to that and talk about how that might be really, really bad. But first, we're going to have a ramble because that was in the title. And my first question is, hang on a sec, what if big data isn't C-3PO? What if actually big data can be wrong? And I think big data is vastly and dangerously wrong in many different ways, but two I'm going to cover. First of all, how it's collected, and then how it's processed. When we look at collecting data, this is really, really, really tough. It's really difficult. Most people do a terrible job at collecting data. And I'm going to touch on a couple of different reasons why I think that is. Hopefully you'll agree. Everyone remember this? The most recent election. Now, here are some predictions. It was about the day before. So the last prediction this site did, it's based on YouGov polls, and looking at every single major poll that went out as well, aggregating all of that into the data that you see here. This is the actual final result. Now, actually, this website did a low and high poll, so that's their median, but actually they did, if we're really wrong one way, it could be this, and if we're really wrong the other, it could be this. The Tories won more than their very highest prediction, Labour won less than their very lowest prediction, and Lib Dem won, well, probably against. They won a lot less than their lowest. It was just every single major polling company got this wrong by an absolute mile. And the question is how? I mean, this is big data, right? This is people going out collecting data to tell us what we're all going to do. This is Peter Kellner, he's president of YouGov. You can read what he said. I'm sort of amazed that this is a hypothesis. You mean to tell me that actually, really, when they answer a poll, they're doing one thing, but when they vote, they're doing, you're kidding me. This is not a 17-year-old politics student, but whatever. What's the actual reason? This guy got it right. This guy is Jim Messina. He worked for Conservative HQ. He's one of the two Americans they brought over to help. Jim Messina quite rightly pointed out, the British polls generally ask which party people supported, not about which individual they'd actually vote for. So, massive, massive general election, huge big data opportunity, masses of data collected, and the people who are collecting it are fundamentally asking the wrong question. which is which political party do you support, not which of your local MPs are you actually going to vote for. Excuse me. He actually got it right. He predicted an exit poll of 314, I think they got 312. So he was the only person that actually predicted the Conservative one correctly, good or bad, depending on which side that you're from. But the point is, everyone else got it wrong. Fundamental flaw in organisations whose main job it is to collect this data, in collecting this data. There is another possibility here that may also contribute this, a bell curve or a normal distribution curve. Typically, this explains a bunch of stuff about loads of different distributions of anything. So average height, average weight, average shoe size. You get a few people at either end, most people in the middle. What if political leanings also followed this curve? So if we look at the actual total population of voting age, members of the Labour Party, members of the Conservative Party, this is my hypothesis, so not necessarily the most scientific, I apologise in advance, but we'll get to the point. What you would expect to see at either end, if this was a proper normalised distribution chart, was about 0.2%, should be another very far corner. This is a little high, that's about right. So let's say that might be true. What that means is, of course, most people are here in the middle. And that means that if you're going to change your mind, if you're going to decide, I'm going to vote a different way, assuming there's just two political parties, probably against, you're not moving from here to here. You're actually moving from there to there. That's not a huge swing. So I think sometimes people forget when they collect data that actually, even if you ask the right questions, people are entitled to, and indeed do, change their mind after the date at which you've asked that piece of information. So the big question from that is, of course, do people even know their minds? And behavioural economics would suggest that there are hundreds of different biases that are actually making sure that people have no idea what they really want. This is not a primer for behavioural economics. I would read Thinking Fast and Slow, it's a good book. But I do want to just touch on two that illustrate the difficulties of collecting data. The first of which is the availability heuristic. What this says is that memories and feelings that you feel are that much stronger if they're accompanied with a very emotive experience. It's one of the reasons why people are scared of flying. Because despite the fact that you would have to cover 852 miles in an aeroplane to cover the same risk as a motorcyclist covering 1 mile, so it's 852 times, roughly speaking, safer than traveling by motorbike, most people are much more scared of flying. Many more people have a fear of flying than of riding a motorbike. And the reason for that is that images like this evoke much more emotive memories. And so when you think to yourself, I have to get on a plane, you remember the emotive pictures of plane crashes of engines on fire, and it makes you scared. You don't remember the very factual point that it's a much safer way to travel than pretty much everything other than rail. So how does that affect the collection of data? One of the other things that happens in an availability heuristic is that it's caused by the recency of the memory you're recalling. So, if I asked you, do you recycle? And the last time that you remember to put out recycling was a month and a half ago, you might say no. If I say, do you recycle? And the last time you put the recycling out was yesterday, you'd say yes. Now that doesn't matter if it's the first time this year you put out the recycling yesterday. The memory is stronger, you're more likely to say yes. So what this is causing is a bias in our own minds that we're unaware of, and there are many more of them. This next one is my complete favourite, which is the framing effect. I don't know how many people can see this chart, but I'll read it out. This is cut straight from an academic textbook, so apologies. The way you ask the question fundamentally changes the response you get. So if you ask a bunch of people in a questionnaire, do you get headaches frequently, and if so, how often? The mean answer you get is 2.2 headaches a week. If you change the question and ask, do you get headaches occasionally, and if so, how many do you get? The change of one word, the mean answer is 0.7 a week. And you can get all of this. How long was the movie? Same movie people watch. Ask how long it is, it's 130 minutes. Ask how short it is, mean answer is 100. Look at a picture of a basketball player. How tall was the basketball player? 79 inches, that's about 6'5", I think. Ask the question, same picture, ask the question like this, How short was the basketball player? 6 to 9 inches. So the way in which surveys are built and asked fundamentally can change the answers that you get back. A bit worrying. And the honest truth is we cannot trust what comes out of people's mouths. Besides which, sometimes I'm afraid we all actually lie. This is a networking conference form. It's asking for a home address, it's required. It's asking for a mobile phone number, that's required. It's asking for a date of birth, that's required. Please, can you all make me feel better about myself and tell me I am not the only person that's ever lied on these forms? No one tells the truth in this, right? Date of birth, 1st, 1951. That's actually my birthday. The point being is that fundamentally when we collect data across the whole range of different things, it's very, very, very difficult to collect accurate data and data you can trust. What about processing data? So let's say we have all this data, we've collected it. Some of the best companies in the world, the biggest companies in the world with the most amount of money and the greatest engineers, don't tend to do a great job of processing data and making it useful. And I say the main guilty party is Facebook friend recommendations. One other friend, one other friend, one other friend, one other friend. Like, how do these people think I know these people? We've got one friend in common. And indeed, 2 friends in common with my friend's sister's dog. And the truth is, of course, is that Facebook friend recommendations are really hard to do well. It's really, really difficult to infer from the data that you have who you should and shouldn't be friends with. If you think about how much data Facebook has on me, where I went to school, where I went to university, and the jobs I've had, and the places I've lived, it should be able to do a lot of a better job. But the problem is, if I'm not friends with someone I went to school with, how does it know that's not because I hate that guy? If I'm not friends with someone I went to university with, how do they know they didn't have a horrific split up and never want to see them again? They can't know that, so they can't use it. So it's an incomplete data set that they're trying to use to model something that's very, very complicated. Same with people creating more relevant advertising. I love these guys. You may all notice that I Google what I'm looking for. This is me in a nice 70s beard. This is the best man icon I've ever seen online. It's brilliant. I Google what I'm looking for. I visit a relevant site. I might visit a second relevant site, and suddenly I'm seeing adverts for that thing in my Facebook feed, just because the amount of cookies that are now out there in the world, they have that much data on me that Facebook can create more relevant adverts for me. So I go onto Facebook, and all of a sudden I see this amazing advert for the world's most comfortable mattress, because I've been on 2 different mattress stops. The biggest problem being I've already bought the bloody mattress. So you are now wasting your advertising money. It would be more effective just to throw me out a normal non-targeted ad than target me with products I've already bought. Again, the problem being you don't have a complete data set. You don't know when I've purchased. So, processing. Fair enough, advertising, marketing, it's just a few brands' money, right? That's not that bad. Do you think it would be possible that we could make that sort of mistake with an entire range of economics? Well, Carmen Reinhardt and Kenneth Rogoff are 2 Harvard economists. They wrote a very famous paper in 2010 that was used to support austerity policies that a variety of different governments were going through. They basically showed that if economic growth slowed when debt was more than 9% of GDP. So this is like, right, debt suddenly very bad because we can now prove that economic growth is going down, we need to cut debt, economic growth is going up. Well, that's great enough, except for one small problem. They hadn't selected the full row of their data in Excel. They had counted only 15 of 20 countries they had researched from. This is true. If you add those extra 5 countries, that's what you find. I'm going to leave you with that, just to ponder one moment and think about the effect it has on 5 years of our economic life while I have a swig of beer. I'll be right back. Quite ridiculous. So on top of all of this, we still have problems when we process data as human brains. So fine, let's remove the machines, they're doing a very good job. Humans made an error with Excel, but also causation versus correlation. One of my favorite things with big data statistics. So a few things to sort of end up with on things that correlate. US spending on science, space and technology correlates with suicide by hanging, strangulation and suffocation. Anyone want to claim causation there? I don't know. Per capita cheese consumption with number of people who died by becoming tangled in their bed sheets. Someone once did say that actually cheese causes bad dreams, more likely to roll around a bit in your sleep. Maybe there is causation there. I'm not so sure. Letters in winning word of Scripps National Spelling Bee correlates with number of people killed by venomous spiders. So the point here again is just because you're looking at two data sets and they correlate does not mean there is causation, does not mean you can draw any actual reason from it. I have to also say you should buy this book. I can't steal 3 of his charts from it without plugging it quite heavily. So this is very funny, spurious correlations. That's where all the data comes from. It's online. Have a look. It's amazing. So we have this thing about big data. It's very, very trendy at the minute. Everyone is telling us it can solve all of our problems. This is my favorite big data analogy. It's like, it's the hidden bit of the iceberg. If only we could see it. And I think I want to come back to why I think it might be a tyranny and why I think the idea of knowing the odds might not be a good thing. I'm the executive creative director of ReadingRoom. I have a job that is lucky enough to look after the creative output of a global agency across about 7 offices and 250 people. It is, by any way you look at it, a great job, and I'm very lucky to do it. At 21, I was a low middle class white guy with average A levels and a lower second degree from an ex-poly. I had the degree so bad, it was actually 94th out of 97 universities when I went there. Good old times, good university list. It wouldn't have got me an interview at most consultancies or most agencies. What are my odds? What if big data had told me what my odds of getting my job now? Would I have bothered? I don't know. Little thought experiment, just briefly. What if at 21 I was a working class black woman with average A levels and a lower second class degree from an ex-poly? What are my odds now? And that stuff is why I think that big data is bad, because fundamentally it doesn't predict the future, it only predicts the past. Because what we're saying is society creates all of this different data that we can now use. Well, if society is creating data, then the biases that are inherent within society are inherent within our data as well. And I think we can all agree that the world, and certainly the society we live in, could be less sexist, less homophobic, less racist, less classist than it is. So all the data we're looking at is full of this. And what that suggests to me is that it makes you think the status quo is unavoidable. It makes you think that things have to carry on. Now, to bring my analogy full circle, that reminds me of Star Wars. It is unavoidable, it is your destiny, but to end on a positive note, we all know that had ended. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You've got to get back again now, spectator. So many things to talk about. Shall I ask the first question, or do you want to usurp me? You've probably got stuff from me.
Yeah, I know. You're going to hate me, but I can't let you
go. Oh, right, that's all right. I'm not going to hate you. You can sit here. Okay, here we go. You can introduce yourself if you want. You don't have to.
I know, I'm Brian. I just can't get away with that comment about the Office of National Statistics on that survey that gave people. The Office of National Statistics are generally stats geeks. They don't deliberately go out to mislead the public. And I think you're biased, maybe, because you're going by the McKinsey survey, which was the 10% people are gay.
I didn't mention that.
I know you didn't, but you were thinking about it. That's why to gay people that statistic seems so low. And I will try and be quick. McKinsey survey, he wasn't a statistician, it wasn't a rigorous survey. He came up with 7% lesbian, 13% gay men. That got averaged out to 10%, and that what became the norm. So when any other survey comes out that is lower than that, gay people get upset about it. But actually, that survey was in line with other similar surveys that we've done across Europe and across the Western world. I recommend the More or Less podcast. I don't know if anyone listens to More or Less. No? Yeah? Goes into it a good detail. And it comes down to bias again, what you were talking about what our preconceptions about what the data is before we read the statistics. I think it's very important. It's difficult, we all have biases, but you've got to be, when you analyse data, you have to try and be as impartial as possible. So I guess to try and turn it into a question, sorry, I've forgotten your name. So, what do you think we can do as the public when we get presented with data? What sort of questions should we be asking to say, is this data representative? What is it saying? Is somebody trying to mislead me with it?
I'm going to yell at it.
I'll come over and I'll bring you the mic because I also want to do a quick reply. First of all, totally agree with you, Kinsey. He selected 200 people that he very specifically selected because he knew. But if you look at the data skews in terms of age and geography and also men and women, the data doesn't add up. It's very skewed towards young people being more comfortable in expressing their sexuality than older people, so that obviously is an issue there. Anyway, I will let you answer the question.
I don't want to get in the middle, so I think mainly be vigilant and just don't trust the data you see without knowing where it comes from. The point you made earlier about the way you can misuse data visualization to show that there was an amazing, and I wish I could find it, or maybe I'll look at that, amazing one where Fox News inverted a graph to suggest that gun deaths were going down. But you actually, I'll pass it over to you. Have I ever got it wrong? Am I close?
There's a whole blog on Fox News and their misrepresentation of data, and you can find some amazing things in there. Yeah, they did try and suggest that gun death had gone down. They've made some amazing claims about Obama and his administration, all through use just shrinking axes or turning them upside down, basically breaking graph conventions. Conventions of a graph, we're very, very used to them, and our eyes read graphs in a certain way based on those conventions. So as soon as you start messing around with those conventions, you can grossly misrepresent the data, because most people don't even read what's in the axis, they just look at the pattern, and that's what we do.
Yeah, that. And check the sources. I mean, it's like those content TV ads that say, sample size 83 women. Just look at what they're saying, because you can tell immediately when the data, well, not immediately, but it's relatively easy to figure out when they're using misrepresenting samples, I would say.
We actually, sorry, totally hijacking. No. We actually had a briefing from a client, a famous hair care product client, Michelle will name this, who did want us to visualize 3 areas of their research and their hair care products that they could put out with their PR releases. And it all sounded really good until we started to look at the research. And obviously, because we're a research firm, we pride ourselves on doing nationally representative research in whichever country that we work in. So that's a real key thing for us. And we looked, and yeah, it was 89% of women think that this hair colour is like the best thing since sliced bread. Sample of 24 women in one salon, and they actually wanted us to visualise this. And we were just like, no, we're not going to do that. Go find someone else. It's just not cool.
Oh, okay, there's one in front. There's one back. Right, hello.
Hi. Yeah, I guess that's a question for Adam. Do you think that artificial intelligence and machine learning will eventually be able to get rid of those biases, those mental, cognitive biases, and help to make better sense of big data? Like, do you think artificial intelligence and big data will eventually come together and then be a bit more science?
Be a bit more sciencey. It's a really good question for that.
I'm going to nod towards Katie at the back, who put me onto a brilliant article on exactly this topic. And that's really sort of the end point of one of the end points of my talk, which is, no, the algorithms that we create are created from the position of human bias. So the biggest mistake you can make is thinking that by completely turning this into an artificial or an AI thing, that will remove the human element, because of course the human element is what it's all programmed with. So it starts with whatever bias we have already.
It kind of depends on what data you want to look at. if you like, we use photo recognition for looking at car damage, and the photo recognition technology is much better at deciding the damage than a human, and that's proven. So it really, so that is, and that's just different data. It's not nothing to do with personal preferences. It's just the camera can take 6 pictures and in that millisecond tell you how bad that car is. So that's data.
Depends on the data.
Yeah? Okay, anyway.
It's just an observation following on from the last one question. I was thinking, how can you know the value of the data unless you know the wording of the question?
Yeah.
Yes?
Good observation.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think there's a wider problem in data collection in general, in that not everyone explains the methodology they're using. It's very, very easy to do it badly, both accidentally and on purpose. And I think again, the one thing I saw someone said online that everyone should now go on a media studies course so they could learn how to watch the news. I sort of feel that everyone should go on some sort of data course so they can learn how to understand the data they're looking at. Because it has become such reckless abuse in many cases, obviously not in all, but often it can be, and people need to be aware of that. So I would agree, and I would say just that people need to sort of skill up on what people do and how they misrepresent stuff.
Yeah, I used to work for Microsoft back in the 90s, and one of the things that people do is lie on those forms, and they do lie on them. They make up. I don't know what they want shiny packets from Microsoft or something. I don't know what it is. Or, I'm a one-man band maybe, and then you go, oh yeah, 50 employees, 8 million turnover, and Microsoft has to spend millions trying to work out whether that was true or not. And it's very difficult to the value of the data that you collect and where you collect it. So the source, the question, it's all that sort of stuff that makes it valuable in different levels, more and more valuable to the business.
Next time, more mics.
No, I like the control. You still got a question? Yeah, okay.
I wanted to ask Laura what your thoughts were on dashboards, because you mentioned them very briefly, implying that you didn't like them, but I wanted to know why.
And do you put fuzzy dice on yours?
I think the answer is that I love well-designed dashboards. I think, again, it really depends on the thought that's gone into them. And we do tend to spend a lot of time with clients just really thinking through the storytelling aspects of the dashboard and the hierarchy of the information. Because what we tend to find is with dashboards, there's a lot of badly designed dashboards out there that are just random collections of data, and they don't really take you through the data in a meaningful way. So I think dashboards that are well designed and they're intuitive and they have a purpose that's quite clear, I really enjoy them and I use them a lot. And we just worked on a really a global segmentation dashboard for Sony actually. So research that they've done on their audiences across the world, and they have it in this. They used to have it in this paper thing called the Bible, which sat on every employer's desk, and they use it to make all their marketing decisions. And it's quite scarily accurate. And it goes through different segments of the market and what they spend and what brands they're into. So it always existed in paper format, and they asked us to turn it into a dashboard. One for every single country that they work in, which, as you can imagine, is quite a lot. So we sort of worked on the UX for that, and what they wanted it to do, which was quite interesting, was slice and dice the data in ways that they'd never been able to before. So they could pick random artists and different demographic groups and bring all the data together, which was quite a tricky data problem. And it took a really, really long time to plan it to get it right. And I think that's the thing is it takes time and energy to design something well. I think dashboards are really trendy right now. So certainly personal dashboards, which people touched on things like Fitbit and I've got a friend who runs TikTok and things like that. And people sort of really getting into using dashboards, but I think you've just got to be careful about the intention of them and the design behind them.
Anyone else? What time is it actually? How are we doing? 8:15?
Yeah.
Yes, hello. Sweet. A personal question, if, for each of you, if you thought that by you sharing more of your personal data, that would allow companies to target you with much more personal, perfect products for you and your life, would you be prepared to share more of that personal data?
Yeah.
I would prefer to own my data and sell it back to the companies in a better way. That's what I want to do. So, and then decide whether they get my name and they actually decide what data they get, and they have to pay me for it. So it would encourage me to work with businesses about what I want, and obviously at the moment, certain businesses think that I'm a girl or I'm this or that, because they get rubbish data at the moment. But I would be more keen to work with the business to sell it, kind of sell it back to them.
No.
What you said. No, I don't enjoy. I don't know. Maybe it's the high school punk in me, but I don't enjoy being told what I will like and what I don't like. I like to find things for myself, so that's not an experience that I'll ever enjoy. And I can't stand the online advertising thing. It drives me mad, especially the things I have to Google for work, and then those cookies on my computer, and they think I'm actually interested in it, which is a bit disturbing, actually. So no.
I would just add, I just don't see how you can have a complete data set to completely understand my life, my ability to suddenly decide I'm into a new hobby, whatever it might be. I'm just, no. But thank you.
And also, who I am today isn't necessarily who I am tomorrow. I'm pretty frivolous, as my friends know. Yeah. Okay.
Hey there, I'm Chris. So I work in medical communications, so we're basically 10 years behind everyone else in the medical world. And one of the big challenges I keep facing is using data in an interesting way and getting that through clients and getting it out there. So I was wondering if you guys had any examples of work you've done where you've really taken data and done something creative and new with it.
I usually leap around the audience like a gazelle, but that pillar's doing me an injustice.
First of all, I really don't think you're 10 years behind, if that's the question. That's our problem. I now live in fear that you might see any of our client dashboards. That's they're Excel. I think it's not necessarily how beautifully they've been presented, but I do think there are examples of work we've done where, because we have the web data, we're able to actually say to our clients, this is actually what's happening, and give them earlier warning signs than they might otherwise get, particularly from other marketing activities. So one of our clients is Skoda, and they're a very traditional marketing agency, and they measure a lot of traditional marketing sort of outcomes. Now, a lot of those things take a lot of time to do. You have to go out and run surveys with the population, you have to go out and run brand surveys and all this other stuff, whereas we can tell them very early, the views to this model section are dipping. You seem to have suddenly dropped off a cliff of test drive requests for this particular model. Have you stopped advertising something? So actually, we're able to be very useful because of the immediacy of our data. Now, I have to massively caveat with everything else I've just said, and we've got to be very careful when we report back that what we're not doing is misrepresenting that and making something out of nothing, or as I said, misrepresenting it. But for us, I think it's the timeliness of some of the data we're able to get that makes us useful to clients.
I would agree. I think it's the timeliness of all this stuff, which is for our clients. They've gone from knowing things 8 weeks ago to knowing things like now, and that helps them. It raises them, gives them a load more questions, and lets them dig into the data more. But it's the actual timeliness of the data which is the most interesting thing about it from my point of view.
I think. So my degree was in graphic design and advertising, so I was a sucker for a story, and I think that there's overwhelming amounts of data available, and generally people know what's going to come out of it. So I think the fascinating thing is always to try and find the thing they didn't think of, or find the interesting story that relates to them, that actually makes the data interesting to them, which can be a bit of a challenge, but I think it's a fun challenge. I think the data visualization world could learn a lot from the advertising industry, not just that thing of just trying to sell people stuff they don't need all the time using data, but actually the storytelling aspect of it is really, really interesting. I think if you can bring more of that into your day-to-day work with data, that's where data starts to come to life, I think, when you can just pull the story out of the numbers.
Hayden Palace, should we have one more? Okay, here we go. Yeah, it was up straight away. It was like, I'm going to be that one more.
Hi, my name's Peter from Wallbay. Certainly, there's been a little bit of negativity about data and what it, what are the threats to our privacy, etc., that you touched on a moment ago. But don't we believe that data can be a force for good? Now, we talked about also in this, we've talked about kind of the concept of insights that we get from data. But I think one of the things about big data technologies are that they're bringing together a much larger amount of data and allowing it to be used, maybe in automated ways, to do more positive things, actually process improvement. So we touched on artificial intelligence, so there's something called Watson that people might know about, which is collecting all sorts of data, one of the implementations on cancer patients, treatments, diagnosis, so it can recommend better treatments for cancer patients. Now that strikes me, that's a kind of force for good. Now, I think if we were so naive when we learned about the NSA and what GCHQ were doing in terms of monitoring communications, texts, etc., that we were surprised by that. I think we are a little naive. And shouldn't we just kind of at least acknowledge that data has, that there's significant value to our lives going forward, to our how things are, the smoothness of processes that we do every day?
That's potentially a nice question to end on. Is there any good news?
Well, I agree. I mean, I agree with you. There is lots of good news. Has anybody read the book The Circle? Read that book? That's an interesting book and the way we are going to go in the future. In London, there's like 6 cameras for every human in London. This book says that everybody has a camera on them all the time, and therefore everything you do, you wouldn't go around hitting people if you had a camera on you, that sort of thing. So yeah, I think more data, can bring good things, and certainly in business, with business process, all that sort of stuff. Definitely the data does improve things.
I guess I'm a natural contrarian, so I've always found it easy to take that position. I wouldn't ever want to say there was no good that came out of it. Of course not. I think, if you apply rigorous techniques to it, and if you know what you're looking at and you've collected the data well, it can really, result in some interesting, outcomes, and it can certainly help. But I wonder, I suppose the sort of the current trendiness of the word and the phrase, the fact it's something you can buy everywhere at the minute, everyone wants to sell you your data back, and it just all seems to be quite shoddily done. So of course there are definitely good things it can do, but I suspect that those good things were being done previously, and using data to find a cure for cancer and whatever else was most certainly going on before anyone started talking about big data. And I don't know, to me it seems like it's become a buzzword, and I think the danger of that is that it thinks it solves everything, and that allows people to misrepresent it. So I don't disagree, but I do think that we should, moderate what we see from that source.
Maybe touching on your presentation, actually, it's a bit like the force, isn't it? It's got to be, it can be used for good and it can be used for bad, but I think generally speaking, over-reliance on anything is a bad thing. And I think that we do have a tendency to put data on a bit of a pedestal, and it's one in a long line of things that is going to solve all our problems. But it's been doing good, and it continues to do good, and it's been doing good for a very long time. Data collection and research, it's an old art, and I think what worries me ever so slightly is as things become more available, the specialist skills involved in looking at data are becoming less valued. So we all have access to so much data, and we're all able to make assumptions about what it's telling us. And what I find from working with a data team is what they can pull out of the data set, I could never dream of doing. And they have an ability to analyse it and see it. And I think just generally when you're working with data, it's always important to ask where it comes from. And who was it that put this view together? and what were their biases? You know, because there's quality, there's a massive spectrum of quality in data, and I think we need to be aware of it. Not all data is good quality data.
Thank you. Right, I think we're going to end it there. Do keep the conversation going, either in person now at that bar or the one next door, and also on our Twitter and Facebook, via email if you've got any suggestions for us. And other than that, I think it's just thank you to the panelists and to Reading Room for hosting us tonight. I've really enjoyed it. Good. And I've been Michael Fassbender, age 37, prefer not to say. That's it, go to the bar.